Good evening, welcome to ITV News. This is Thursday night's calendar with Katy, Rickitt and Duncan Wood.
Here are tonight's main stories.
Claudia surge. Detectives say they've received new information since teams began scouring gravel pits in North Yorkshire. We'll have the latest.
Kabul evacuation. We speak to the student from Afghanistan, ready to take up her studies in York after her journey to freedom.
It was the hardest trip that I have ever had in my life, and I was so afraid to come to the airport because there were so many checkpoints on the way by Taliban.
Festival fever as thousands prepare for one of the country's biggest music events. What can fans expect this year?
And going for gold, Paralympic superstar Hannah Cockcroft prepares for her third Games and another possible medal haul. First tonight, as police teams hunting for clues into the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence and their third day of searching woodlands and ponds at Sandhut and gravel pits on the outskirts of York, detectives say they're looking into new information they've received since the operation started.
Yes, our cameras were allowed beyond the police cordon today to capture more footage of the search taking place, while senior officers from North Yorkshire Police, who are leading the inquiry, stayed away from the scene to assess what they've discovered in the last couple of days. Well, Rachel Bullock has been following developments, and what have you been able to see today, Rachel?
Well, we've seen an intensifying land search. These police vans now blocking it from view. It's taking place alongside that ongoing search of fishing ponds, which sit in the heart of this thick woodland. This entire area still being combed for clues in this 12-year-old murder case. Lines of red tape snaking through the trees of this woodland reveal the extent of this land search, while just out of view, the fishing ponds, scythes, rakes and even fingertips, the tools used to hunt for a clue in one of the UK's most historic and notorious unsolved murders. This is a methodical and forensic search. The red tape sets out grids showing officers the areas which have already been searched, as well as guiding them to areas which are yet to be searched. Blue flags are being used to highlight areas which may need to be re-examined. Detectives refuse to be drawn on what, if anything, has so far been discovered here. But they did reveal this afternoon that this potential new break in the case has led to emerging new lines of inquiry. The lead detective saying in a statement, "I thank the public for the positive responses and new information received in support of the current phase of the investigation. Our focus is on finding Claudia and bringing those responsible for her disappearance and suspected murder to justice. A focus which now appears to be intensifying." Well, police are unable to say just how much longer this search will go on for. Of course, over the years, this case has led detectives as far away as Cyprus in their search for clues. Now it's brought them here, just 7 miles away from Claudia Lawrence's home, in the desperate hope of finally solving this case.
Rachel Bullock at Sandhut, thanks very much for the latest.
Next tonight, as the crisis in Afghanistan intensifies, there were 2 explosions today near the airport and a hotel. Back in Yorkshire, the mother of a soldier who was killed in the conflict in 2012 says she now feels her son's death was in vain.
Yes, Gareth Thursby died in a so-called green-on-black attack by a rogue Afghan policeman. Today, ahead of a charity football match in Leeds in memory of Yorkshire's fallen, Caroline Whittaker says she believes nothing has changed since British and US troops entered the country 20 years ago. Sally Simpson has the story.
Football has brought people together at Farsley Celtic for years. This weekend they'll be raising funds for charities, including the Army Benevolent Fund. Gareth Thursby is one of 457 British soldiers who lost their lives in the Afghan conflict. Today his mother reflected on her loss.
Probably like all the 400 and odd families, I feel a bit like the deaths were in vain now. It doesn't feel like we've done anything to help. I know not everybody agrees with that, and people will say we did change things. where I'm standing, it doesn't look like we have. Gareth would be thinking as a soldier. Obviously, I'm thinking as Gareth's mother. He'd probably say they have made a difference. A lot of soldiers are saying they have made a difference. Maybe they just want to think that and they don't want to think it's all in vain. And perhaps Gareth would say the same, but I won't agree with him on that one.
Sunday's Match for Heroes will see police and army teams go head-to-head, as well as Farsley Celtic legends and former pros. A positive event in dark times.
It's about just enjoyment and hopefully taking bad memories away and giving good memories back, and that's what it comes down to for them and for myself on this day. This is what this is about, them guys that are no longer with us.
It means a lot to a lot of people, and I think especially at the moment with what's going on. So we're expecting it to be a really busy, fun day.
It means unbelievable amount to these lads who are playing, the army lads and the police team. Because some of the police team are ex-army lads, so it means everything to them really.
For Caroline, it means her son is not forgotten. And 9 years on from Gareth's death, it's one battle she continues to fight. Sally Simpson, ITV News, Leeds.
Well, one woman who's managed to leave Afghanistan has spoken to us today about her perilous journey to the UK.
Yeah, you may remember last week I spoke to a student called Arifa in Kabul. She didn't want to be identified at the time, but was desperately hoping for her dreams of taking up a scholarship scheme at York University weren't simply going to be quashed. Well, despite the challenges, she made it, along with a group of other students, helped by the British Embassy. Now free from the Taliban, she can finally show us her face. She spoke to me earlier from a hotel where she's quarantining ahead of finally coming to Yorkshire.
The moment I left my home, I was just crying, and I didn't know what will happen to me on the way. And I was like thinking that can I reach the airport or no? It was the hardest trip that I have ever had in my life, and I was so afraid to come to the airport because there were so many checkpoints on the way by Taliban. And if the Taliban find out about the documents that I had with myself, for sure, it would put my life in danger. For the first night, we couldn't all come inside the airport because they said that we can bring only 14 or 20 people. So you have to choose that who wants to come first. And I was like thinking, because it was in the middle of night, and I was like thinking that how I can go back to home, because my home was far away from the airport. So I just asked my friends to let me go inside, because if I go back to my home, of course I will face with the Taliban on the way. And if they find about my documents, for sure they will kill me.
You were worried how you would get here. We were worried sick about how you would get here. So just tell us what it felt like when you finally got on that plane and realised you were getting out of Afghanistan.
I prefer to not get emotional. As I said, it was very hard for me, because every time when I plan to go abroad for my studying or for any other business trip, and I was very much hopeful that I will come back to my country and to work for my country. But at this time, I was like thinking that how I can say goodbye to my family or to the country, that I don't have it anymore. So it was so hard for me, but I'm here to work hard and to study well, and I'm hoping to get back my country from Taliban. And now I have a different responsibility. I'm not working for my personal dream. I'm working for my country, and I'm studying for my country, that one day I could get back my country from the Taliban. And it put a huge responsibility on my shoulder, that I should stay strong. I should really work hard to reach my dream one day.
Listen, last time we saw you, you couldn't even show your face. We can see your beautiful face now, and this is your time to have your voice, as you spoke about last time. So just tell us, what are your plans now?
At the moment, what I can do for my country is to raise my voice before my people in Afghanistan lose their life. We have to stop it.
Amazingly courageous young woman there, Arifa, talking to Katy a little bit earlier on, and I bet when she gets to York University she'll be talking to Katy again, but fantastic that her voice is now being heard. Well, next tonight to one of the most anticipated mass events of the last 18 months as fans flock to Bramham Park for the Leeds Festival, which of course was cancelled last year because of COVID-19.
The event is due to attract 90,000 fans over 3 days, but those going through the gates will have to prove they don't have coronavirus. David Hurst has more from Bramham. A bit of a logistical challenge, eh, David?
Yes, absolutely. As I speak, Katy, preparations going on all around us. Finishing touches being carried out on the stages over there. You can hear sound checks going on all around us. And over here, we've got all the food and drink stalls ready for those 90,000 fans. And at 11 o'clock tomorrow, there'll be live music for the first time here at the Leeds Festival in 2 years. Many festival goers have arrived already. 6 of the 9 campsites dotted around this vast area, they're already full, and many fans arrived by train this morning at Leeds Station, and they were very excited.
Yeah, we've really been looking forward to it, haven't we? Because then we're all off to uni next month, and it's just like one last celebration. It's good, yeah.
Not like to go to events and stuff, you've got to like be double jabbed and have proof, so I reckon that's mainly why we'll do it. That's why I did it.
You can tell you're just looking forward to this, aren't you?
We've been locked in for a year and a half. We've got to get out somehow. So why not now? I guess. Yeah.
Well, for the first time, there are 2 main stages. This one here, this is the East stage. And across there, over at the distance, that's the West stage. Stormzy, Liam Gallagher, Biffy Clyro, Post Malone, some of the headline acts. But ticket holders will have to prove that they are COVID-free, and this is what some of them had to say earlier.
I had to prove that I've been double vaccinated. George here, he has to prove.
Yeah, because I've not been double. I've had one, so I've had to show negative PCR. Not PCR, lateral flow.
I'm so excited. So we came in 2019 and it was amazing. I've been so excited to get back. So it's just great to be with my friends as well.
So a lot of anticipation all round, but the organisers are urging caution. At the Tramlines Festival in Sheffield last month, there were quite a few COVID cases after that. The organisers here don't want the same, although this is a much bigger event.
Thank you very much, David. We've lost him for the weekend, haven't we?
Well, next tonight to the huge effect of the pandemic on NHS waiting times as the country battles the deadliest pandemic in more than a century.
The knock-on effect means that the waiting times for non-COVID treatments are now really piling up. One of those affected is Bally Sandhu from Leeds, who's now been taken off the list for a much-needed kidney transplant.
Well, this evening's Tonight programme here on ITV features stories of some patients having to wait, believe this or not, up to 6 years for consultations and surgeries. Well, the show has been looking at just how big the challenge will be to clear the backlog, as Nick Smith now reports.
Back in the early stages of the pandemic, the NHS had a crisis on its hands, the like of which it had never seen before. And while resources were diverted to battling COVID, it meant that provisions for other treatments were put on the back burner. And in some cases, it had tragic consequences.
This is what I have left of my daughter.
Like for 27-year-old Latifa Molyneux. For months, she'd been suffering from a crippling pain in her leg. During lockdown, doctors repeatedly diagnosed her over the phone with sciatica.
All they seen was COVID. That's all they seen. They were so scared for people to go into the GP surgery. They were scared for people going to the hospital. They just didn't want to give you that time of day at that time with the COVID. They just wanted to say, this is what you got, here's some tablets. That was it.
It's a diagnosis over the phone, but it was the wrong diagnosis.
Eventually, after months of appeals from her family for more investigation, doctors discovered she had a rare form of cancer, and she died within days of her diagnosis. The backlog has also hit those waiting on potentially life-changing surgery. In the case of organ transplants, some NHS trusts suspended treatment for almost 5 months. In Leeds, Bally-Sandhu is still waiting on a new kidney, and his surgery has now been deemed too risky, so he's been temporarily taken off the transplant list.
I just thought that when it happened, the COVID happened, I've lost my chance. That's the only way I could put it. I thought I've lost my chance.
I think my biggest fear is Bally deteriorating and becoming so weak that the department tells us that actually he's not fit enough to go back on the transplant list.
There are claims it may now take more than 3 years to get back to pre-pandemic waiting times for some treatments. The Health Secretary is the man tasked with trying to speed up that process.
Of course it is daunting. The work that we've done that suggests that waiting lists will grow, sadly, before they get better. And the reason for that, by the way, is because we estimate there's some 7 million people that in normal times would have come forward for help from the NHS, but they didn't. They stayed away because they were asked to protect the NHS, and everyone understands that. They did the right thing.
COVID has directly taken the lives of more than 130,000 people in this country. But as we uncover the strain it's put on our health services, it means we are sadly still counting the true cost of its impact. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Still to come. Will Hurricane Hannah blow away the opposition at the Tokyo Olympics, Paralympics even?
And are we heading for gold weather-wise this weekend? It was certainly blowy at the coast today. I'll have your bank holiday weather forecast a little later on. Don't go away.
John, we won't. Now, as schools get ready to start a new academic year, a survey suggests half of parents don't feel enough is being done to help children catch up after disruption caused by COVID-19. Many want to see the school day lengthened to increase learning time for their children.
Well, there's also support for maintaining the system of teacher assessment for grades, which was brought in after many exams were cancelled because of the pandemic. Now, the government says it's committed to what it calls an ambitious education recovery plan. For a bit more, here's Kevin Ashford.
Polly Ives from Sheffield has 3 children. She says during lockdown she felt more involved with her youngsters' education and hopes that will continue.
We joined in a lot of the activities with them. We printed out some of the worksheets that our teachers sent home. We got to do the Zoom videos with our little boy. So actually, I would love to see that more in future, that we're not necessarily completely responsible for it, but that we know and understand and can support our children learn at home.
In a survey looking at what could be done to help children catch up after the COVID disruption, 39% of parents questioned supported the idea of extending the school day. 52% were in favour of reducing class sizes, and 34% supported the system of teacher assessment and coursework for grading students that was introduced after many exams were cancelled.
Can you please tell me, Bella, about the play of Macbeth?
These youngsters know all about assessments instead of exams. Because of COVID, it was their reality as they studied for their GCSEs, and many liked the change.
I like doing the assessments. I think it's quite full on to do 2 months of just assessments all the time.
If my final grade is just determined by one exam, if it goes wrong, if I have a bad day, then I'm walking away with the grade that maybe I was capable of getting a better one.
Knowing that we didn't have exams meant that they had to hit that ground running in September. So homework was always done, classwork was always done to the best of their ability. And although some students might think that actually they wouldn't have got as well as on the exam, that could be because they worked harder earlier, which saw them get a better result than if they just crammed it in at the last minute.
The government has told ITV it has no plans to scrap exams and says it's going to spend £1.5 billion on tutoring in schools and colleges as part of what it calls its education recovery plan. This tutoring company says it's seen a change in why parents have opted for tuition for their children.
Obviously there's support with exam questions and progressing that side of things, but also confidence, raising aspirations, to help students really understand what life beyond school might look like. And it's confidence in particular that's been a focus for parents during the pandemic and in the wake of teacher assessed grades. So we're seeing quite a structural shift around the reasons parents get tuition for students.
A new school year always means challenges for youngsters, but none more so than for today's students as they begin to emerge from the COVID pandemic. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
Well, the ITV Evening News continues at 6:30 with Lucrezia.
The latest on the explosions outside Kabul airport. It happened as thousands are still trying to get out of Afghanistan and followed a warning from Britain and America of an imminent terror threat. We'll have reaction from Washington and Downing Street. Also, the Education Secretary tells us he won't rule out giving the COVID vaccine to children as young as 12. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Well, John's in the studio with us now. John, it's Leeds Festival this weekend. So what's everyone wearing? Is it wellies? Is it waders? Is it anoraks?
Waders? No. You might want to take an extra layer, because you're going, aren't you?
Yeah.
You might want to take an extra layer, because rather like today, there'll be a bit of a cool wind blowing. But wellies, you don't need wellies. It's going to stay dry, unless it's a fashion accessory, of course. That's entirely up to you.
Well.
But it's International Dog Day today. So here's Puddin the dog at Scarborough. And what's Puddin doing? He's looking up because it's free. Either that or he's just sniffing the air, because to a dog, of course, it's all about smells, isn't it? You know that, Katy, don't you?
I can't believe I missed it was Dog Day.
But yeah, International Dog Day, no less. But we've had that pesky cloud today and that cold wind. Let's take a trip around the region. There we are, Caton Bay, up at Robin Hood's Bay, that cold northerly wind. A few layers needed if you're on the beach there. But inland, well, a little bit calmer, but still fairly cloudy. That cloud really taking its time to break up today. The best of the sunshine again was up in the Pennines and Craven area of North Yorkshire, Ingleborough there, the blue sky as you can see. As I say, that cloud really did sort of struggle, but there was just a little bit of blue there at Reeton Sands this afternoon, and a shaft of sunlight at Doncaster. Look at that, just blue, just through the clouds there at Doncaster. And also at Wombwell first thing this morning.
Oh, that's
nice, isn't it? Yeah, just shining through a gap in the clouds. That cloud is beginning to break up through this evening, so we will see a little bit of sunshine coming through. But we're almost at the end of summer now. The end of August is the end of summer, and temperatures are slightly above average. There we are. Who'd have thought it? Slightly above average through the summer. It's not been a bad summer, you see.
I think it's been an awful summer. But
No.
I can't remember a hot day.
Worse.
John, thanks very much. Full forecast, fine detail end of the programme. On to sport now. And Leeds United striker Patrick Bamford has received his first call-up to the England squad for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers. The 27-year-old is the only uncapped player to be named in the squad by Gareth Southgate. Bamford caught the eye of the England manager, having impressed since winning promotion to the Premier League with Leeds last summer.
The Leeds Rhinos have moved into the playoff positions in Super League after picking up their first win at the Wigan Warriors for 8 years. Brad Dwyer got on the end of a Cruz-Leeming kick to get Leeds on the scoreboard in a relatively quiet first half. Reece Martin set up Richie Myler to extend the Rhinos' lead before kicking a penalty himself under the post to complete the 14-0 win.
To the Paralympics now, and Kadina Cox from Leeds is hoping to become a double Paralympic champion on the cycling track when she starts her events in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Now, Kadina, who also competes in the athletics, has had a far from ideal run up to the rearranged games, having suffered with injuries. But despite the setbacks, she's hoping for a clean sweep of medals.
I've had a nightmare with injuries the last kind of year. And with scheduling as well, the 100 metres and the team sprint in cycling clash. So I've had to make a decision. So I'm going with the team sprint as opposed to the 100 metres. And then, yeah, my injuries have kind of ruled me out of the other event that I wanted to pick up. So, yeah, I'll be going for 3 medals. Hopefully I come back with the 3 that I want.
Sure, she'll do her very, very best. Well, Paralympics GB has already got 17 medals. The aim is to get between 100 and 140 over the next 10 days of competition. And Kadina isn't the only athlete from our region expected to win back-to-back medals.
There's also high expectations on the shoulders of Hannah Cockcroft from Halifax, who already has 5 gold medals under her belt from the last 2 games.
The Hurricane, as she is very well known, is aiming to add 2 more to her impressive collection in Tokyo, as Chris Dawkes found out before she got on the plane to Japan.
Yeah, obviously I'm going in as 5-time Paralympic gold medalist, so it's a bit of pressure.
She isn't called the Hurricane for nothing. Hannah Cockcroft has been leaving rivals in the dust for over a decade. Tokyo will be her 3rd Paralympics, and even a global pandemic hasn't slowed her down. Already this year, Hannah's broken 7 world records.
Training over the last 18 months has been so different to anything that I would usually do, and incredibly different to the preparation I've had, for London 2012 and then for Rio 2016. tracks and gyms were shut, so we built a gym in the garage and we turned our front bedroom into a training room. But ultimately, I think, you know, my training over the lockdown is what's made me have such a great season so far.
Hannah is now a household name, starring on programmes such as The Great British Bake Off and Countryfile. But her first TV appearance was here on Calendar back in 1997.
Oh, they got Becky.
Born with deformity to her legs and feet, Hannah suffered 2 cardiac arrests following birth. Back then, her parents never dreamed of the life she would lead.
Heart attack the minute she was born, wasn't she? And then within a couple of hours again. And then all this, you know, she'll never walk, she'll never do this, she'll never achieve anything. And she's proved them all wrong, and she continues to do so, really.
So this is what Hannah's shrine is, it to Hannah.
Yeah.
But these are the most important things, aren't they?
They're the real McCoy. They're the goals from London and from Rio.
Rachel and Graham have been there with Hannah for most of the big days in her life, whether in a stadium or a palace. Yet Hannah will be going solo in Tokyo. With no spectators allowed, her parents will be watching on TV back home in Halifax. Well, Graham will anyway.
Even when I'm there, I can't watch, not the actual race.
Not the best watcher, are you?
No.
Normally asking me what's going on. In the space of 10 seconds, quite a lot. But
my mum probably won't even watch. She'll be watching from behind her hands, not wanting to see what happens. But I know that they're all going to be tuned in. I think the time difference isn't going to be very nice. I think my races are at like 1 a.m. UK time, so we'll see who can actually stay awake long enough for it.
No doubt many will be staying up, keeping up with Hannah. Well, that's a different story. She's already demolished all in her path in both London and Rio. Now we wait to see what happens when Hannah hits Tokyo. Chris Dawkes, ITV News.
Well, just before we go, do join us tomorrow when I'll be presenting part of the programme live from Leeds Festival. Now, we'll be looking at some of the serious questions about safety at festivals like this, but of course we'll also be sucking up the atmosphere after the festival takes place for the first time in 2 years. What's the weather like? Here's John.
Bringing you blue skies and sunshine. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire weather.
Yes, hello again. Well, a little bit more cloud than I would have liked today. This was the scene at lunchtime here in Leeds. At least it stayed dry for the test match. There were 1 or 2 bright intervals, though. Here's one over Bradford this morning. We could take a look at the satellite and radar then earlier on. No rain showing up on that, but as you can see, a lot of cloud there feeding in from the North Sea. The best of the sunshine was in the Pennines and up towards the Dales. So through this evening and overnight tonight, that cloud is going to continue to feed in from the North Sea, thick enough occasionally towards the coast, Filey, Scarborough, to produce an odd light shower, but no more than that. And low temperatures could just about get down to single figures. It will be colder than it was last night. There is sun times for tomorrow. Over yesterday evening's sunset at Wombwell, up at 6:05. Down again at 8:09. So again tomorrow morning, expect a lot of cloud. That cloud will tend to break up. We'll see 1 or 2 sunny intervals coming through. A little bit more in the way of sunshine tomorrow compared to today. Still that northerly wind taking the edge off the temperatures. 17 Celsius in Filey, maybe 20 Celsius in the south of the region. And as we head through tomorrow evening, a little bit of sunshine, 1 or 2 sunny intervals to round things off. Into the weekend then, Saturday, again a lot of cloud to start with, but that cloud will break up readily during the course of the day, especially inland. Best of the sunshine again in the Pennines and the Dales as top temperatures reach around 21 Celsius. So another decent day on Sunday, but Monday there will be a lot of cloud around and maybe 1 or 2 bits and pieces of light rain or drizzle. That's it. Enjoy your evening.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire weather.
Well, that is it from us. Our next update is at 10:30.
The national and international stories are next with Lucretia Millery.
But for now, from all of us here on the Calendar team, thanks ever so much for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Good night.